Hello everyone. My name is Serena Carter. I'm 34 years old, and for years I believed my father's death was nothing more than a tragic accident. I devoted my life to serving my country, working quietly behind the scenes at the Department of Defense. Most people thought I was just another government employee pushing paperwork. They had no idea what I actually did, or what I was capable of. Everything changed the night my own mother arranged a dinner date with a decorated Navy commander. She believed she was helping me find the perfect husband. Instead, she unknowingly placed me directly in the path of a conspiracy that reached into the highest levels of the military. Before sunrise, my apartment would be broken into, my father's greatest secret would be stolen, and I would discover that the man sitting across the dinner table wasn't searching for love. He was hunting something my father had died protecting. What happened over the next few hours forced me to choose between protecting my family and protecting my country. Looking back now, I realize that evil rarely announces itself. Sometimes it arrives wearing medals, expensive smiles, and polished shoes. This is my story. The first thing Commander Adrian Vale did when I reached the restaurant wasn't to greet me or offer a handshake. He looked at his watch, not the kind of quick glance most people make without thinking. This was slow and deliberate, almost like he was recording evidence against me before I had even sat down. 7 minutes late, he said quietly. Outside, heavy autumn rain hammered against the windows overlooking the dark waters of the Chesapeake Bay. Lightning flashed across the harbor, the briefly illuminating dozens of sailboats rocking violently against their docks. Inside, however, everything looked perfect. Crystal glasses sparkled beneath soft golden lights. Gentle piano music drifted through the room. Wealthy couples laughed over expensive wine while servers moved silently between tables dressed in crisp white uniforms. I removed my rain-soaked coat. There was an accident near the bridge. I answered calmly. Commander Vale leaned back in his chair, as though my explanation meant nothing. A disciplined person prepares for unexpected problems. His smile suggested he believed he'd offered wise advice instead of an insult. I smiled back. Then I suppose I'm fortunate you discovered my first weakness so quickly. His eyes narrowed, only for a second. Most people would never have noticed. But I had spent years interviewing suspects, reading hostile diplomats, and identifying deception hidden behind confident smiles. That tiny hesitation told me exactly who Adrian Vale was. He expected obedience. He wasn't used to being challenged. Good, because I had no intention of making this evening easy for him. My mother, Linda Carter, had arranged this entire dinner. For weeks she had insisted that Adrian was exactly the kind of man I needed. A respected naval commander. A future admiral. A real gentleman. She had repeated those phrases so often I could practically hear them, even when she wasn't speaking. Earlier that afternoon she had called one final time. Please wear the red dress, she begged. It looks elegant. It shows confidence. You've spent too much time hiding behind your government job. I smiled bitterly as I remembered the conversation. My mother had absolutely no idea what my government job actually involved. She believed I worked somewhere near the Pentagon doing administrative paperwork. I had stopped correcting her years ago. The fewer people who understood my real responsibilities, the safer everyone remained. So I wore the red dress. Not because she asked me to. Because arrogant men often revealed their true personalities when they believed a woman had dressed specifically to impress them. Adrian pulled out my chair with practiced confidence. As I sat down, his hand rested against the small of my back, too firm, too long. Just enough pressure to remind me he wanted control over every interaction. He finally removed his hand after I looked directly into his eyes. My mother tells me you work around the Pentagon. I do. What department? Defense. He chuckled. Administration, sometimes. He laughed louder. I knew it. What makes you so certain? You answer like every government clerk I've ever met. I took a sip of water instead of correcting him. People underestimate quiet women every single day. Sometimes that mistake costs them everything. A waiter approached carrying 2 leather-bound minnows. Before I could touch mine, Adrian reached over. She'll have the sea bass. He handed one menu back. Reserve Chardonnay. The waiter looked uncertain. His eyes shifted toward me. I'm allergic to sea bass, I said pleasantly. The waiter froze. Adrian frowned. Since when? Since birth. He blinked. I don't remember your mother mentioning that. My immune system never asked her permission. The waiter struggled not to smile. I'm sorry, sir. I looked directly at him. I'll order for myself. A relief flooded across his face. Of course, ma'am. After he walked away, Adrian folded his hands together. You enjoy correcting people. I enjoy making my own decisions. They aren't always the same thing. No, I agreed. They usually aren't. Dinner arrived, and Adrian transformed the evening into a lecture. He talked about leadership, discipline, respect, loyalty. Every sentence somehow returned to how exceptional he believed himself to be. My junior officers today are soft. They complain about everything. One harsh conversation and suddenly they're speaking to inspectors. He shook his head with obvious frustration. Nobody wants accountability anymore. I carefully cut another piece of salmon. What kind of inspectors? He waved dismissively. The professional complainers. Internal investigators. People who've never commanded anything more dangerous than a stapler. I raised one eyebrow. You seem unusually familiar with investigations. His fork stopped halfway toward his mouth. What exactly do you mean? You sound like someone who's dealt with them. Silence. Then he smiled again. The practiced smile, the fake one. You ask a lot of questions. I've always been curious. Curiosity gets people into trouble. So does arrogance. For the first time all evening, his smile disappeared. His phone vibrated across the table. Only once he looked down instinctively. Most people would have seen nothing. I caught everything. Hey Harbor Master, she still won't withdraw it. Says she kept copies. The notification vanished before anyone else could have read it. But I already had. Adrian immediately flipped the phone over. His fingers rested on top of it protectively. Then, almost casually, he reached across the table and placed his hand over mine. His grip tightened. A woman like you, he said quietly, works too hard. I imagine your career has made you suspicious, independent, guarded. You'd probably be happier letting someone else carry the responsibility. His thumb slowly rubbed across the back of my hand. I didn't pull away. Not because I welcomed the gesture. Because predators often revealed themselves when they believed they were winning. He wasn't studying me. He was performing, repeating lines that had probably worked dozens of times before. Unfortunately for him, I wasn't part of his usual audience. A faint clicking sound echoed somewhere behind us. Tiny, almost impossible to hear beneath the music. A camera shutter. I casually glanced toward the restaurant entrance. A woman wearing a navy trench coat lowered her phone. She turned immediately toward the exit. No hesitation, no dinner, no companion. She had entered, taken one photograph and left. Interesting, very interesting. Adrian never noticed. Or perhaps he expected her to be there. My purse vibrated. Not a normal notification, 2 short pulses, a pause, 1 long pulse, priority signal. Only members of my operational team use that pattern. Adrian frowned, expecting someone. I receive messages. Phones are rude during dinner. So is ordering food for someone without asking. He laughed politely. I smiled politely. Neither of us meant it. Keeping my face perfectly relaxed, I slipped one hand into my purse beneath the table. The screen lit up. S. Jonas, this unknown female photographed you in Target at 19Z42. Facial recognition running. Separate update: junior officer from his command requested emergency contact with our office. Target knows someone is investigating him. Guess I felt my heartbeat slow instead of accelerate. Training. Emotion cloud decisions. Another message appeared seconds later. S. Priority alert. S. Silent alarm activated. See, your residence breached 2 minutes ago. F. For a brief moment, everything around me seemed to disappear. The music, the conversations, the clinking glasses. Someone had broken into my apartment, while Adrian deliberately kept me sitting here. This dinner wasn't a coincidence, it was an alibi. And if someone was searching my apartment, they weren't looking for jewelry. They were looking for something specific, something connected to my father. I slowly locked my phone, raised my eyes, and looked directly across the table. Commander Adrian Vale smiled confidently, completely unaware that his carefully planned evening had just begun falling apart. I knew one thing with absolute certainty: the date was over. The hunt had just begun. Rain hammered against my windshield so hard that the world outside dissolved into streaks of white and black. Every few seconds lightning split the sky, briefly revealing the empty streets of Georgetown, before darkness swallowed everything again. I should have called the police. That would have been the normal response. But nothing about tonight was normal. The timing was too perfect. Someone had waited until I was trapped inside that restaurant with Adrian before breaking into my apartment. Whoever planned this knew exactly where I would be and exactly how long I'd stay. That wasn't burglary. It was a targeted operation. I parked 3 blocks away instead of pulling into my usual space. If someone was still inside, I didn't want them hearing my engine or seeing my headlights. The rain soaked me within seconds. My red dress clung to my body as I hurried through the narrow alley behind my apartment building. Most people would have entered through the front door. I wasn't most people. Years earlier, after my father died, I had quietly mapped every possible way into and out of the building. Tonight that preparation might save my life. The rusty fire escape creaked softly beneath my weight as I climbed toward the third floor. Cold rain dripped from my hair into my eyes, but I ignored it. When I reached my balcony, my stomach tightened. The sliding glass door was slightly open. Only a few inches, just enough to tell me someone had already beaten me here. No shattered glass, no damaged lock. Whoever entered knew exactly how to bypass my security system. That realization frightened me more than the open door itself. I rested one hand against my thigh. Hidden beneath my dress was a compact Siggisair P365 secured inside a custom holster. I quietly drew the pistol. I checked the chamber by touch and stepped inside without making a sound. The apartment was almost completely dark. Only flashes of lightning illuminated the room every few seconds. Everything looked wrong. Furniture had been moved. Cabinets stood open. Books were scattered across the hardwood floor. Someone hadn't been searching quickly. They had been searching carefully. Methodically, they knew exactly what they hoped to find. I slowly moved through the living room. Every instinct screamed that I wasn't alone. Then I smelled it. Sweat. Fresh sweat. Someone was breathing somewhere inside my apartment. I tightened my grip on the pistol. Don't move. My voice echoed through the darkness. Silence. Then another flash of lightning illuminated the hallway. A man stepped into view. Martin Cole, my mother's longtime neighbor. The man who had repaired our fence, fixed broken plumbing, installed my apartment's security system 2 years earlier. He held a heavy crowbar in one hand. In the other, he carried a narrow mahogany box. My father's mahogany box. For years that box had remained untouched inside an old cedar trunk at the foot of my bed. Very few people even knew it existed. What are you doing here, Martin? His face had gone completely pale. Rainwater dripped from his jacket onto the floor. I'm sorry, Serena. His voice trembled. Put the box down. I can't. You can. No. His breathing became faster. You don't understand. Then explain. Lightning flashed again. For a split second I noticed something else. My father's cedar footlocker had been smashed open. His old Navy uniform lay scattered across the room. Family photographs covered the floor. Whoever searched the apartment had destroyed everything connected to him. Not because they hated him. Because they believed something valuable was hidden among his belongings. Martin followed my eyes. They told me it was just old memorabilia. Who told you? He looked toward the open balcony. They said nobody would get hurt. He swallowed hard. Commander Vale. The words hit me harder than any punch could have. So the dinner was meant to keep you away. My heartbeat slowed. Everything suddenly fit together. The Adrian had never intended to impress me. My mother had never intended to introduce us. The entire evening had been carefully arranged so someone could search my apartment uninterrupted. I took one slow step closer. What are you looking for? Martin looked at the mahogany box in his hands. This, my father's keepsake. He laughed nervously. No. He carefully opened the lid. Inside rested a single gold challenge coin. Beautiful, heavy. Decorated with a crimson compass above a black ocean wave. My father treasured that coin more than anything else he owned. As a child I had asked him dozens of times why. He always smiled. Some things protect people even after we're gone. Back then I assumed he meant memories. Now, I wasn't so sure. Martin stared at the coin. They'll destroy my life if I don't bring this to them. Who's they? Vale? And, he hesitated. Then he whispered another name. Rear Admiral Curtis Blake. My blood froze. A Navy commander working alongside a flag officer. This was becoming much bigger than I imagined. I kept my weapon steady. Put the coin down. I can't. You don't have a choice. Oh, I do. His eyes suddenly filled with panic. And none of them end well. Without warning he threw the crowbar. Not at me. At the enormous mirror hanging beside the hallway. The glass exploded across the apartment like a grenade. Thousands of razor-sharp shards filled the air. I instinctively turned my face away. That single second was all Martin needed. He charged. His shoulder slammed into my chest, driving both of us onto the hardwood floor. My pistol slid beneath the couch. Pain shot through my back. Martin swung wildly. His fist grazed my jaw before I trapped his arm and twisted sideways. Training took over. Emotion disappeared. I hooked one leg around his knee, shifted my weight, and threw him over my shoulder. He crashed onto the floor with a painful grunt. Before he could recover, I pinned him face down. One forearm pressed against his throat. The other controlled his wrist. Tell me everything. I can't breathe. Start talking. He coughed violently. Your mother. My entire body stiffened. What about her? She didn't know. Didn't know what? She thought Vale only wanted the coin. My grip tightened. Why would she help him? Martin closed his eyes. Because she owed him. The room suddenly felt colder. Owed him what? Money. He struggled for another breath. Her charity foundation. It lost hundreds of thousands of dollars. She covered the losses with illegal loans. Vale bought every one of those debts. He owns everything? I stared at him in disbelief. My mother, the woman who spent years criticizing my career, had secretly buried herself beneath mountains of debt, and instead of asking for my help, she had trusted Adrian Vale. Martin continued speaking between painful breaths. Had promised to erase every dollar she owed. If she convinced you to go on tonight's date, and if I stole your father's coin. The betrayal hurt more than I expected. Not because my mother wanted money, but because she never believed she could come to me. She believed a stranger instead. Before I could ask another question, Martin reached into his jacket. I reacted instantly. But he wasn't reaching for a weapon. He pulled out a small silver urn, my father's memorial urn, the one containing a portion of his ashes. Now before I could stop him, Martin hurled it toward the open balcony. Everything inside me froze. I launched myself away from him. The urn bounced once across the wet balcony tiles, another few inches and it would fall 3 stories into the flooded alley below. I caught it with both hands just before it disappeared over the edge. For several long seconds I simply knelt there, holding the urn tightly against my chest, trying to steady my breathing. When I finally turned around, Martin was gone. The apartment door stood open. The gold coin had disappeared with him. Only broken glass remained behind. My secure phone vibrated again. It was Jonas. Police units are 2 minutes away, he said. I'm fine. He escaped. What did he take? I looked toward the shattered cedar chest. My father's challenge coin. Jonas became unusually quiet. Finally, he asked one careful question. Are you absolutely certain that's all he took? Yes? Another pause. Then his voice became much more serious. Serena, I don't think that was just a souvenir. Neither did I. For the first time in years, I realized my father hadn't spent decades protecting a sentimental keepsake. He had been protecting a secret, and tonight, someone was willing to risk murder to steal it. I stood alone in the middle of my destroyed apartment, surrounded by broken glass, scattered photographs, and memories that had been ripped apart in just a few minutes. The rain still poured through the open balcony door. Cold wind carried drops of water across the hardwood floor, mixing with the blood that slowly dripped from the cut on my chin. I barely noticed the pain. My attention stayed fixed on the empty space where my father's challenge coin had rested only moments before. For years I had believed it was nothing more than a treasured keepsake. Tonight proved otherwise. People don't organize military officers, fake dinner dates, and home invasions for sentimental objects. Whatever my father left behind, it was worth risking everything to obtain. My secure phone vibrated again. Serena, Jonas said immediately after I answered. Local police are 1 block away. Call them off. Wet. I don't want this becoming a public investigation. You've just survived a home invasion. I know. Then let the police do their job. I slowly looked around the apartment. If uniformed officers entered this room, everything would become evidence. Photographs, military records, my father's personal files. Every piece would be cataloged, photographed, and eventually reported. If this conspiracy reached as high as Martin claimed, there was no guarantee every police officer involved could be trusted. I'll handle this internally. Jonas remained silent for several seconds. Finally he sighed. I was afraid you'd say that. I need everything you can find on Commander Adrian Vale. I'm already working. And Rear Admiral Curtis Blake. The keyboard on Jonas's desk began clicking rapidly. You think they're connected? I know they are. Martin admitted both names. And my mother unknowingly helped them. Another long pause. I'm sorry. I know how much that must hurt. I closed my eyes. My mother made her choice. Right now I have to stop whatever they're planning. 30 minutes later I arrived at one of our secure facilities in Alexandria. From the outside it looked like an abandoned warehouse squeezed between 2 shipping companies. Inside, it was one of the Department of Defense's quietest operational centers. No signs. No government markings. No flags. Only reinforced steel doors and multiple security checkpoints. After confirming my identity, I walked through the final blast door. Jonas looked up from 6 glowing computer monitors. At the moment he saw my bruised face, he stood. You weren't kidding. I've looked better. He handed me a towel. You should probably see a doctor. I'll survive. I quickly changed out of my soaked dress and into black tactical clothing stored inside my emergency locker. Comfortable boots, body armor, extra magazines, a suppressed sidearm. Within minutes I no longer looked like someone who had gone on a dinner date. I looked like someone preparing for war. Jonas watched quietly. I've spent the last 20 minutes digging through financial records. And Martin wasn't lying. He rotated one monitor toward me. The screen displayed hundreds of banking transactions connected to my mother's charity. Every page looked worse than the last. Illegal loans, Missing donations, hidden accounts, fraud. My heart sank. How much? Jonas answered softly. Nearly $600,000. I stared at the screen. My mother had spent years organizing charity events, helping veterans, supporting military families. At least, that's what everyone believed. Now I didn't know what was real anymore. Jonas continued. Vale quietly purchased every outstanding debt through shell corporations. So he owned her. Exactly. He never needed to threaten her. He simply offered freedom. I leaned against the table. My mother thought she was trading one old coin for a second chance. Jonas nodded. She probably never imagined national security was involved. No. She was manipulated. But she still made the decision. That realization hurt more than I wanted to admit. Jonas switched to another monitor. This is where things become frightening. Satellite photographs filled the screen. Naval facilities, dockyards, military vessels. One submarine stood highlighted in red, the USS Leviathan. I recognized the vessel immediately. One of the Navy's newest Virginia-class attack submarines. Fast, quiet, nearly impossible to detect underwater. Why am I looking at this? Because Commander Vale boarded it 1 hour ago. My eyes narrowed. With the coin? Most likely. He enlarged another image. A reception was taking place aboard the submarine. Senior off attractors, several black government vehicles, and Rear Admiral Blake, already on board. I folded my arms. So whatever they're planning starts tonight. Jonas nodded. We intercepted encrypted communications about an unusual data transfer. What kind of transfer? We don't know. But, he hesitated. But what? The message repeatedly mentioned a physical authorization key, and neither of us spoke. We both knew exactly what that meant. My father's challenge coin. Jonas opened another secure file. This belonged to your father. I frowned. I've never seen it before. You weren't supposed to. The document carried the highest security classification I had ever encountered. Even my clearance normally wouldn't allow unrestricted access. Across the top appeared my father's name. Captain Daniel Carter. Below that, a sentence changed everything I believed about his career. As lead cyber penetration specialist, he wasn't just a naval officer, Jonas explained. He designed emergency access systems for classified defense networks. I slowly read each page. My father had spent years building secure encryption methods, testing military vulnerabilities, creating systems no foreign government could break. Then I reached the final paragraph. My breathing stopped. The challenge coin, and Jonas nodded. It isn't just gold. It's a hardware decryption key. I looked up. You mean, it physically unlocks legacy defense servers. Without it, the stolen data remains encrypted. Suddenly everything made sense. The fake date, the break-in, the conspiracy. The coin wasn't valuable because of the gold. It was valuable because it unlocked secrets worth billions. Jonas pointed toward another screen. There's more. An intercepted transmission appeared. Departure sketch. A Solidus encrypted burst transmission after submerging this. They're taking the submarine underwater. Exactly. And once they dive, they disappear. I stared at the digital countdown. Less than 3 hours remained. If the submarine left port, recovering the coin would become nearly impossible. Jonas folded his arms. There's still one possible way aboard. He displayed detailed blueprints of the Leviathan. Tonight they're hosting a reception. Catering staff, maintenance crews, extra civilian movement. I created a false credential. He handed me an identification badge. The photograph looked convincing. So I walk on board, reach the communications room, recover the coin, and stop the transmission. That's the plan. I studied the blueprint carefully. Every hallway, every emergency exit, every security checkpoint. Years of operational training taught me to memorize routes before entering hostile environments. After several minutes, something bothered me, very slightly, almost too small to notice. I leaned closer. Jonas, this blueprint. What about it? The auxiliary escape hatch. He shrugged. What about it? It's wrong. He frowned. What do you mean? This layout shows it permanently welded shut. It isn't. How do you know? Because I inspected the Leviathan during its cybersecurity certification 2 years ago. I looked directly at him. That hatch is operational. Jonas smiled weakly. Maybe they updated it. No, they didn't. I felt an uncomfortable chill crawl across my back. Only one type of blueprint contained this exact mistake. Training files, false schematics, documents intentionally created to identify foreign hackers. Slowly, very slowly, I looked back at Jonas. Where exactly did you get these plans? He didn't answer immediately. His fingers stopped moving across the keyboard. The room became strangely quiet. Finally, he smiled. But it wasn't the nervous smile I had known for years. It was calm, cold, almost relieved. I'm sorry, Serena. The heavy steel door behind me suddenly locked with a loud metallic click. Every emergency light inside the warehouse switched from bright white to deep crimson red. My instincts exploded into action. I reached for my pistol. Jonas remained perfectly still behind his computer. I wish things had happened differently. The ventilation system above us released a loud mechanical hiss. "What did you do?" He looked at me with genuine regret. I accepted a better offer. A chemical odor drifted into the room. Colorless gas slowly poured through the ceiling vents. Halon, fire suppression gas. It wouldn't poison me. It would simply remove the oxygen. Within minutes, there wouldn't be enough air left to breathe. I stared at the man I had trusted for years. "You betrayed all of us." He lowered his eyes. "They offered enough money for me to disappear forever. You sold your country. I sold a system that never appreciated people like me. You'll never leave." He almost laughed. "Actually, I already have." The gas continued filling the room. My lungs suddenly felt heavier. The clock on the wall read 10:37 p.m., and somewhere across the harbor, Commander Adrian Vale was carrying my father's decryption key toward the USS Leviathan. If I couldn't escape this room, everything my father died protecting would disappear beneath the ocean before midnight. The chemical smell grew stronger with every breath. Halon gas. It wasn't designed to kill people directly. It was designed to kill fire. The problem was, fire and humans both needed oxygen. Within a minute, my breathing became noticeably harder. My chest tightened. Every instinct screamed at me to run toward the door. I already knew it wouldn't open. Jonas had planned this carefully. He wasn't trying to defeat me in a fight. He was simply waiting for the room to do it for him. Behind the reinforced glass of the control booth, he watched silently. "I'm sorry, Serena," he said through the intercom. "I truly am, Bun. If it makes you feel any better, I never wanted this." I forced myself to smile despite the burning in my lungs. People always say that right before doing something unforgivable. He lowered his eyes. "You don't understand." "No, I understand perfectly. You sold your country. You sold everyone who trusted you. And for what? A bank account." His face tightened. "It wasn't only the money. No, I spent 15 years building systems that other people received medals for. My name never appeared anywhere. They promised recognition. They promised freedom. They promised I could finally stop living in the shadows." I laughed quietly. Traitors always find beautiful words for ugly decisions. The room continued filling with gas. The overhead lights flashed deep red. Emergency alarms echoed through the warehouse. I checked my watch. 10:40 p.m. Less than 80 minutes remained before the submarine departed. If I died here, Commander Adrian Vale would vanish beneath the Atlantic, carrying my father's decryption key. Everything my father sacrificed his life to protect would belong to people willing to sell it. That wasn't going to happen. I slowly looked around the warehouse. Steel walls, locked exit, rows of computer servers, power cables, emergency generators. Years of tactical training had taught me one important lesson. If you can't beat the system, break the system. I dropped to one knee. Not because I was giving up, because my body genuinely needed air. My vision blurred around the edges. Every breath felt smaller than the one before. Jonas misunderstood what he was seeing. "You should stop fighting. It's over." I ignored him. Instead, I studied the nearest server rack. Hundreds of blinking lights, massive backup batteries, high-voltage power feeds. Everything inside this building depended on electricity, including the magnetic lock holding the exit closed. I slowly reached inside my tactical vest. Jonas frowned. "What are you doing?" I pulled out my combat knife. He laughed. "You can't cut through steel?" "I'm not planning to." I staggered toward the server cabinet. The room spun around me. Every step required effort. Behind the protective panel, thick electrical cables disappeared beneath the floor. High voltage, extremely dangerous. Normally, touching them would be suicide. Tonight, they were my only chance. Jonas finally understood. No, his voice suddenly filled with panic. "Don't. You'll kill yourself." I looked directly at him through the glass. "My father taught me something." "What's that?" "When evil builds a machine, find the power switch." With every ounce of strength I had left, I drove my titanium combat knife directly into the main electrical conduit. The explosion was instantaneous. A violent shower of blue sparks erupted across the room. The blast threw me backward onto the concrete floor. Every light went dark. The servers died. The ventilation system stopped. The halon gas release ended immediately. More importantly, the magnetic locks automatically disengaged during total power failure. A loud metallic click echoed through the warehouse. The exit door unlocked. Too fresh air. I crawled toward the doorway. My lungs burned like fire. Outside, cold night air rushed into my face. I collapsed onto the wet pavement, coughing violently as oxygen flooded back into my lungs. For nearly a minute, I simply breathed. Rain soaked my tactical clothing. I welcomed every drop. It reminded me I was still alive. Behind me I heard pounding against the control booth. Jonas was trapped. Without electricity, the electronic blast shield protecting him refused to open. He slammed both fists against the glass. "Serena, wait! I can help you!" I slowly stood. "You already helped. You showed me exactly who you are. I can still tell you where Vale is. You'll tell federal investigators. I promise." I looked at him one last time. "No. You'll tell them after you're arrested." I pulled the mechanical emergency release beside the outside security gate. Steel bars dropped over the entrance to the control booth. Jonas stared in disbelief. "You can't leave me here," I met his eyes. "I didn't. You left yourself." Then I walked away. My watch read 10:58 p.m. I had lost almost 20 minutes. Too much time. I jumped into my sedan and drove faster than I ever had before. Rain continued pounding the windshield. Traffic lights became meaningless. Every minute mattered. Every second increased the distance between me and Commander Vale. As I crossed the bridge toward Annapolis, my secure phone rang. It was Director Helen Cross, the Inspector General, one of the few people inside the Department of Defense I trusted completely. "I just received Jonas's emergency transmission. I know. Has compromised. Hay admitted everything." Helen's voice became sharp. "Where are you?" "Heading toward Fort Severn." She didn't waste time asking why. "You believe the transfer happens tonight?" "Yes, we've intercepted unusual encrypted naval communications." "So it's real?" "I believe so. Unfortunately, I can't move federal agents yet." "Why not?" "I don't have enough legal evidence." I gripped the steering wheel tighter. "If we wait for paperwork, they'll disappear." "I know." She hesitated. Then she quietly said something that surprised me. "Officially, I cannot authorize what you're about to do." I smiled slightly. "And unofficially, if you somehow prevent a national security disaster, I'll deal with the paperwork afterward." That was the closest thing to permission I was ever going to receive. Fort Severn appeared in the distance. Bright floodlights illuminated the naval docks. Military police guarded every entrance. Beyond them, I saw it. The USS Leviathan, massive black, silent. Rain rolled down its steel hull like rivers of liquid silver. Crew members hurried across the deck making final preparations before departure. Heavy ropes still connected the submarine to the pier. Not for long. I parked nearly half a mile away behind an abandoned warehouse. Using binoculars, I watched the activity. Main gangway, heavily guarded. Security checkpoints, vehicle inspections, facial recognition cameras. There would be no walking aboard with a fake identification badge. Jonas had undoubtedly reported every forged credential before betraying me. I needed another way. I unfolded the submarine blueprint from memory. Not the fake version Jonas showed me. The real one I had studied during my cybersecurity inspection 2 years earlier. One entrance remained almost completely unguarded. The emergency escape trunk near the stern. The normally inaccessible from land, accessible from the water. I looked toward the freezing river. Dark, violent, filled with rain and strong currents. I quietly removed my body armor, keeping only essential equipment. Extra ammunition, combat knife, suppressed pistol, waterproof communication device. Everything else stayed behind. I whispered one sentence to myself before stepping into the icy water. "Come on, Dad. Let's finish what you started." The freezing current wrapped around my body like ice. Ahead of me, the USS Leviathan waited in the darkness, and somewhere inside that submarine, Commander Adrian Vale believed he had already won. He had no idea I was coming. The freezing water stole my breath the instant I slipped beneath the surface. Every muscle in my body screamed from the cold, but I forced myself to stay calm. Panic wastes oxygen, and tonight every second mattered. Above me, the USS Leviathan loomed like a floating mountain of black steel. Rain pounded against its hull while floodlights swept across the harbor, searching the darkness. Fortunately, they were looking for boats, not a single swimmer. I stayed close to the submarine's shadow until I reached the stern. There it was, the auxiliary escape trunk, exactly where I remembered. I attached the magnetic bypass device to the electronic locking mechanism and watched the tiny indicator light flash from red to green. The hatch unlocked with a soft metallic click. I slipped inside and quietly sealed it behind me. The inside of the submarine felt completely different from the storm outside. Warm, claustrophobic, filled with the constant hum of machinery. Every surface smelled of machine oil, recycled air, and diesel fuel. Crew members hurried through narrow passageways preparing for departure. No one expected an intruder to already be on board. I moved silently through maintenance corridors, keeping to the shadows whenever sailors passed. Every step had to be perfect. One mistake, one unexpected sound, and the mission would end before it truly began. My earpiece crackled briefly before losing signal. The thick steel hull blocked all communication with the outside world. From this point forward, I was completely alone. I slowly made my way toward the secure communications section. According to my memory, it sat 2 decks below the command center. As I approached the corridor, voices echoed through the steel passageway. I immediately stopped. Commander Adrian Vale. There was no mistaking that calm, arrogant voice. "Everything is ready," another man answered, older, more commanding. "Rear Admiral Curtis Blake." The buyer's confirmed receipt. "Yes, Admiral." "The hardware key." Vale laughed quietly. "I have it! My father's challenge coin." I carefully peeked around the corner. There they were. Commander Adrian Vale stood beside a hardened military computer terminal. Rear Admiral Blake watched the door nervously. In Adrian's hand, my father's gold challenge coin reflected the overhead lights. For just a moment, I forgot to breathe. The object my father had protected for decades, the object that had destroyed my family, was only a few feet away. Adrian slowly twisted the center of the coin. A quiet click echoed through the room. The two halves separated. Hidden inside was something I had never imagined, a sophisticated encrypted micro device. Not jewelry, not a keepsake, a hardware authentication key. My father hadn't exaggerated. The coin truly unlocked classified defense systems. Adrian carefully inserted it into a secure military terminal. Immediately, warning lights flashed across the monitor. "Assisipetida was SESS inability a pregressbar X-bar appearan, 5 cent kesa." My heart pounded. If the transfer finished, years of classified intelligence would disappear forever. I stepped into the doorway. Step away from the terminal. Both men turned. Rear Admiral Blake nearly jumped backward. Commander Vale simply smiled. I was wondering how long it would take. His confidence hadn't changed. Not even slightly. "You've caused me more trouble than expected, Serena. I'm afraid it's a little late." He glanced toward the monitor. "I-12 I slowly raised my suppressed pistol. "Disconnected." Vale folded his arms. "Do you know what's fascinating about people like you? They always believe rules matter. I spent my entire career following rules, and what did I receive? A uniform, a pension, empty speeches about honor." He shook his head. "This information is worth $500 million. The people buying it appreciate talent. Unlike our own government." I stared directly into his eyes. "You're committing treason." "No, I'm collecting overdue compensation." Behind him, the progress bar reached 22%. Time was disappearing. Suddenly, a loud alarm echoed throughout the submarine. "DV! D!" The entire vessel shuddered violently. The floor tilted beneath my feet. Outside, the submarine was leaving the surface. Commander Vale smiled wider. "You've already lost." Once underwater, escape would become almost impossible. Heavy footsteps thundered through the corridor behind me. 3 armed sailors rushed toward the communications room. They weren't ordinary crewmen. They moved with purpose, weapons already raised. Vale pointed directly at me. "Kill her." Gunfire erupted instantly. Bullets slammed into steel walls only inches from my head. I dove behind a thick bulkhead as sparks exploded around me. The deafening noise echoed through every corridor. I counted quickly. 3 shooters, automatic rifles, limited cover. The monitor inside the room continued climbing. A 38%. I couldn't stay pinned. Not now. My eyes landed on a large yellow steam pipe running across the ceiling. High-pressure emergency line. An idea formed instantly. I holstered my pistol, pulled out my combat knife, then smashed the emergency pressure valve as hard as I could. The valve exploded open. A massive cloud of boiling white steam burst into the hallway. The advancing sailors screamed. Their vision disappeared instantly. One dropped his rifle. Another stumbled directly into the wall. I moved before the steam cleared. Years of defensive training took over. One elbow shattered the first man's nose. A sweeping kick knocked the second sailor onto his back. The third blindly fired several rounds before I struck his wrist, sending the rifle sliding across the deck. Less than 15 seconds later, all 3 men lay unconscious. The hallway fell silent again. I stepped back into the communications room. Rear Admiral Blake stood frozen against the wall. Commander Vale no longer smiled. Instead, he held a heavy service revolver aimed directly at my chest. The progress bar flashed across the monitor. A 70%. "You should have stayed home," he said quietly. "I gave you every opportunity. You murdered my father." His expression changed, only slightly. "You finally figured it out. It wasn't an accident?" "No. He discovered our operation years ago. He threatened to expose us. Became inconvenient." The word struck me harder than any bullet ever could. For years, I had blamed fate, weather, bad luck. Now I finally knew the truth. My father had been murdered by the very officers he had sworn to serve beside. Something inside me became perfectly calm. The grief, the anger, the unanswered questions. Everything suddenly sharpened into absolute focus. Commander Adrian Vale hadn't just stolen government secrets, he had stolen my father. And tonight, justice had finally caught up with him. The monitor reached 90%. Only seconds remained. I tightened my grip on my weapon. This was the moment everything would be decided. The revolver remained pointed directly at my chest. Commander Adrian Vale's finger rested calmly on the trigger. Behind him, the monitor continued counting upward. SD8AX2 and 92%. The submarine groaned as it descended deeper beneath the Atlantic Ocean. Somewhere above us, the surface disappeared. There would be no rescue, no backup, no second chance. Only one of us was leaving this room victorious. Vale smiled. You've already lost. In less than 30 seconds, every classified file on this system belongs to our buyers. You can arrest me later if you survive. It won't matter. The data will already be gone. I slowly lowered my pistol, not because I was surrendering, because I needed him to believe I was. You always underestimate people, I said quietly. I underestimated your father once. I won't make that mistake again. You already have. He frowned. What do you mean? My father never relied on just one layer of protection. For the first time that night, Commander Vale looked uncertain. Hidden beneath my tactical vest sat a small device no larger than a belt buckle. A prototype electromagnetic pulse generator. My father had helped design the technology years earlier. Only a handful of people even knew it existed. I pressed the concealed activation switch. A silent pulse expanded through the room. Nothing seemed to happen. Then, every electronic screen flickered violently. The communication terminal sparked. The lights flashed. Warning alarms erupted across the submarine. Commander Vale stared at the dead monitor. No, the progress bar froze forever. Has a 98% a transmission failed. The encrypted transfer had stopped only moments before completion. Vale screamed in frustration and pulled the trigger. Click. Nothing happened. The EMP had disabled the electronic firing mechanism inside his smart revolver. His confidence disappeared instantly. Mine didn't. I closed the distance before he could react. His first punch missed. I trapped his wrist. Twisted sharply. A loud crack echoed through the communications room. He cried out as the revolver fell to the deck. I drove my elbow into his face. Blood exploded across his white uniform. He stumbled backward into the disabled terminal. Still, he refused to surrender. Vale grabbed a heavy steel wrench from an emergency maintenance cabinet and swung it toward my head. I ducked underneath the attack. The wrench smashed into the control panel instead, sending another shower of sparks across the room. He swung again. This time I caught his arm and used his momentum against him. His body slammed into the bulkhead with enough force to knock the air from his lungs. For years he had relied on rank, authority, fear. Tonight none of those things could save him. One final strike sent him crashing unconscious onto the steel floor. The room became completely silent. I immediately pulled my father's challenge coin from the damaged terminal. The moment I disconnected it, every warning light turned green. The transfer had officially failed. The secrets my father died protecting remained secure. Rear Admiral Curtis Blake slowly raised both hands. His face had become completely colorless. It's over, he whispered. It doesn't have to end like this. I looked directly into his eyes. It ended the day you murdered my father. A tears formed in his eyes. I never wanted anyone to die. But you allowed it. He lowered his head. I made mistakes. No. You made choices. There is a difference. I secured his hands behind his back using heavy-duty restraints from my tactical vest. You're going to order this submarine back to the surface. If I refuse, you won't. He understood why. The failed transmission had already triggered multiple security alerts throughout the vessel. Within minutes the Navy would realize something catastrophic had happened. He slowly nodded. I'll cooperate. 20 minutes later, the USS Leviathan broke through the surface of the Atlantic. Fresh air rustled as emergency hatches opened. Outside, blue flashing lights surrounded us from every direction. United States Coast Guard cutters, naval destroyers, federal helicopters. The entire harbor had become a floating crime scene. As I stepped onto the rain-soaked deck, dozens of armed federal agents stormed aboard. Commander Adrian Vale regained consciousness just in time to be placed in handcuffs. Gone was the confident officer from the restaurant. Gone was the polished smile. Gone was the arrogance. He looked like every other criminal who finally realized his lies had reached their end. Director Helen Cross walked toward me through the rain. You finished it. We finished it. She accepted the challenge coin from my hands with remarkable care. So this is the famous key. My father trusted the wrong people, but he built something strong enough to stop them. Helen nodded respectfully. He would be proud of you. For the first time in years, I believed that might actually be true. 2. Over the following weeks, the investigation spread across multiple federal agencies. Commander Adrian Vale was charged with espionage, conspiracy, murder, a theft of classified information, and treason against the United States. Rear Admiral Curtis Blake accepted a plea agreement and testified against every member of the organization. Martin Cole confessed to the burglary and cooperated fully with investigators. Jonas admitted his betrayal before a federal court. His dream of disappearing with stolen money ended inside a prison cell. As for my mother, she was arrested for financial fraud connected to her charity foundation. She wasn't charged with treason because investigators confirmed she never understood the true purpose of the challenge coin. She believed she was helping erase a financial debt. Nothing more. Several months later, she asked to meet me. She cried. She apologized. She admitted she had been too ashamed to tell me the truth. For a long time, I didn't know whether I could forgive her. Eventually, I realized forgiveness and trust are not the same thing. I forgave her because carrying hatred would only poison my own future. But trust must be earned again. Some wounds need time. The others leave permanent scars. A year later, I visited my father's grave. The morning was quiet. Sunlight filtered gently through rows of oak trees. I placed fresh flowers beside the headstone and carefully rested a newly minted Navy Challenge coin next to them. The original remained locked inside a secure government vault, where it could never be abused again. I smiled. You won, Dad. It just took me a little longer to understand your mission. A gentle breeze moved through the cemetery. For the first time since his death, I felt peace, not because justice erased the pain, but because truth finally replaced the lies. People often believed I was just another government employee behind a desk. Commander Adrian Vale believed that too. He thought paperwork couldn't fight back. He was wrong. Sometimes the quietest people carry the heaviest responsibilities, and sometimes the person everyone underestimates becomes the one who ends everything. That is how my story ends. Face story summary. Serena Carter believed her father had died in a tragic accident until a carefully arranged dinner date exposed a massive conspiracy involving corrupt Navy officers, a betrayal by trusted friends, and a stolen military decryption key hidden inside her father's challenge coin. After uncovering the truth, surviving betrayal from her own mother and colleague, and risking her life aboard a nuclear submarine, Serena stopped the theft of classified intelligence, exposed the traitors, and finally brought justice to the people responsible for her father's murder. Face story lesson. This story reminds us that integrity is more valuable than power, wealth, or status. The truth may remain hidden for years, but sooner or later it finds its way into the light. Trust should be earned, loyalty should never be sold, and doing the right thing is often the hardest choice. But it is always the one worth making. Thank you so much for spending your time with me and listening to my story. If you enjoyed this story, please leave a like, share your thoughts in the comments, and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss future stories filled with mystery, justice, and unforgettable endings. Until next time, stay safe, take care of the people you love, and remember, the truth may be delayed, but it is never defeated.